This is a continuation of the story, written with a focus on psychological tension, pacing, and a gritty cinematic atmosphere. The silence of my childhood bedroom wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like the air before a terminal storm. I stared at the phone screen until the text blurred into illegible pixels. Partner is pressuring her to remove IUD. Partner wants to start a family. The note was dated just 2 weeks ago. At that time, Serena was already officially with Brendan. They were in love. They were the golden couple of the Davis holiday season. If Brendan was the partner she was referring to, why would he look at me with such genuine, hollow-eyed shock when I mentioned the clinic? And if Brendan wasn't the partner, then Serena was playing a game much more dangerous than simple social climbing. A soft creak came from the hallway. I froze, locking my phone and sliding it under my pillow. The door opened a crack. It was Brendan. He looked older than he had 3 hours ago, his face haggard in the dim yellow light of the hall. "Chloe," he whispered. "You awake?" "Hard to sleep after a bloodbath," I said, my voice rasping. He stepped in and sat on the edge of the bed. The scent of expensive scotch drifted off him. He'd been drinking alone in the study. "I need to know, did she ever mention me at the clinic? Before we officially met?" I looked at him, searching for a tell. A twitch in his jaw, a shift in his eyes. "No, Brendan. She talked about a rich guy who was going to take care of her. She talked about him like he was a paycheck, not a person. Then she met you and suddenly he was history." Brendan let out a jagged breath. "I gave her my grandmother's ring, Chloe. I was going to ask her on New Year's." "You dodged a bullet," I said, but the words felt hollow. I kept thinking about that 4th appointment. The pressure to have a baby. If Serena was a con artist, getting pregnant was the ultimate lock-in strategy. But who was she trying to lock in? "Go to sleep, Bren," I said softly. He nodded, stood up, and paused at the door. "You shouldn't have shown the files, you know. To the whole room. It was a lot. She was destroying my life, Brendan. I used the only weapon I had." "I know," he said, his voice dropping to a shadow. "But weapons have recoil. Just be careful." He closed the door. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Because Brendan was right about one thing, recoil. As a nurse practitioner, I had just committed a massive HIPAA violation. I had shared patient records with a room full of people. I had traded my career for a moment of revenge. And Serena Lewis didn't strike me as the type to go down without a fight. The next morning, the house felt like a funeral parlor. My mother was busy scrubbing the kitchen floor, her way of dealing with trauma. While Uncle Robert and Aunt Carol had vanished before sunrise, likely to spread the filtered version of the scandal to the rest of the country club set. I sat at the breakfast nook, my laptop open. I wasn't looking at medical records this time. I was looking at the Davis family holdings. My family, the Devises, owned a mid-sized real estate empire in New York and Connecticut. It was old money by American standards, which meant it was mostly tied up in trusts and managed by a board. My brother was the CEO of the primary management firm. Uncle Robert sat on the board. I started digging into the rich guy Serena had mentioned in September. She had described him as someone who could take care of her forever. I checked Serena's social media, the accounts she hadn't deleted yet. There were photos from late summer at a beach house in the Hamptons. A very specific beach house. I recognized the wraparound porch and the distinctive weathered gray shingles. It wasn't a rental. It belonged to the Sterling Group. The Sterling Group was our family's biggest rival. And the head of the Sterling Group was Marcus Sterling, a man who had spent the last decade trying to hostile take over my brother's company. My stomach did a slow, sickening roll. If Serena was seeing Marcus Sterling in September, why did she jump ship to Brendan in October? Unless she didn't jump ship. Unless she was a plant. I pulled out my phone to call my contact at the clinic, a receptionist named Maya who owed me a few favors. "Maya, it's Chloe. I need you to do something highly illegal and very quiet." "After last night?" "Chloe, I heard you went nuclear at dinner." Maya's voice was hushed. "The office manager is already asking about access files. You're in deep, girl." "I know. But I need to know who paid Serena Lewis's bills. Not the ones I waived. The IUD. The follow-ups. There's a billing address on file for the insurance, or a guarantor's name for the out-of-pocket. Give me 10 minutes. 10 minutes felt like 10 hours. When the phone finally buzzed, it wasn't a call. It was a screenshot. The guarantor for Serena's medical expenses wasn't Marcus Sterling. It was a shell company called RL Management. I knew that name. I'd seen it on my mother's tax returns. RL stood for Robert Lewis, no. It stood for Robert Liam Davis. Uncle Robert. The man who had been screaming, lying whore at the table. The man who had been the loudest voice calling for Serena to be thrown out. He wasn't just her partner. He was her benefactor. And according to my notes, he was the one pressuring her to get pregnant. I found Uncle Robert in the library, nursing a cigar and staring at a portrait of our grandfather. He looked every bit the pillar of the community. Authoritative, wealthy, and morally superior. I didn't knock. I walked in and slammed my phone onto the mahogany desk. The screenshot of the billing record was glowing. How long, Robert? I asked. He didn't flinch. He didn't even turn around. He just took a long puff of his cigar. You always were the difficult one, Chloe. Too much curiosity, not enough loyalty. Loyalty? You were paying for her abortions while she was dating your nephew. You were the one she brought to the clinic in September. You're the rich guy she was going to marry. Robert turned then, a cold smile on his face. Marry? No. Serena was an investment. A very talented, very beautiful investment. You put her in Brendan's path. I realized, the horror dawning on me. You sent her to that bar. You told her exactly how to play him. Brendan is soft, Robert said, stepping closer, his voice a low growl. He's been running this company into the ground with his ethics and his transparency. The board wanted him out, but his mother owns too many shares. I needed a way to control him. A wife who was beholden to me. A child that would secure the succession. It was a perfect plan. Until I recognized her. I whispered. Until you decided to play hero, Robert spat. Do you have any idea what you've done? You didn't just ruin Brendan's engagement. You exposed a patient's private history. By tomorrow morning, Serena's lawyers will have filed a suit against you and the clinic. You'll lose your license. You might even go to prison. And Serena? She'll get a massive settlement from the clinic's malpractice insurance. She wins either way. My heart hammered against my ribs. He was right. In my haste to burn Serena, I'd built my own pyre. Why the baby, Robert? Why pressure her to remove the IUD? Robert's eyes darkened. Because a Davis heir born to a woman I control is better than a Davis heir born to someone like you. Someone who thinks for herself. I'm calling Brendan, I said, reaching for the phone. Go ahead, Robert shrugged. Tell him his favorite uncle was sleeping with his fiancée. Tell him his whole life is a lie. See what it does to him. He's already on the edge, Chloe. You want to be the one to push him off. I hesitated. I looked at the door, then back at the monster in the suit. There's one thing you forgot, Robert, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Oh, and what's that? I'm a nurse. I know how to handle a crisis. And I know how to keep records. I left the library without calling Brendan. I needed more than a billing statement. I needed Serena. I found her at a dingy motel on the edge of town. She wasn't a Davis anymore. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a gray hoodie and leggings. She looked small, tired, and furious. When she opened the door and saw me, she tried to slam it. I put my boot in the frame. I know about Robert, I said. She froze. The anger in her eyes shifted into something else. Fear. Or maybe relief. He's going to kill me, she whispered, letting me in. He's going to sue me, I countered. But he's definitely done with you. You're a liability now. Serena sat on the edge of the stained mattress. He promised me everything. He said if I got Brendan to marry me and got pregnant within the first year, he'd set up a trust for me. $5 million. I just had to feed him information from Brendan's laptop. Corporate espionage, I muttered. Classic Robert. He's the one who made me do the Pornhub thing, Serena said, looking up, her eyes brimming with real tears this time. He had his tech guys fake those photos of you. He said we had to get you out of the picture because you were the only one smart enough to see through me. I didn't want to do it, Chloe. I swear. Save the innocent girl act for someone who hasn't seen your medical charts, I snapped. But if you want to survive this, you're going to help me. How? He's got lawyers. He's got the board. He has the money, I said. But you have the phone. You have the texts, don't you? The instructions from him. The threats when you didn't want to take the IUD out. Serena hesitated. Then, she reached into her bag and pulled out a second burner phone. He thought I deleted everything. But I'm not stupid. 3 days later was the Davis Annual Charity Gala. It was the biggest event on the social calendar, held at a ballroom in Manhattan. Everyone who was anyone would be there. Robert was in his element, shaking hands, playing the grieving uncle who was helping his nephew through a difficult breakup. Brendan was there too, looking like a ghost in a tuxedo. He was avoiding me. My mother was busy pretending everything was fine, her smile brittle and fake. I waited until the keynote speech. Robert was on stage, standing behind a podium embossed with the Davis crest. He was talking about legacy and integrity. I stood at the back of the room with Maya. She had the tablet hooked up to the ballroom's AV system. You sure about this? Maya whispered. There's no coming back from this. I lost my career the moment I stood up at dinner, I said. This isn't about saving my job. This is about burning the house down. Maya hit the enter key. The giant screens behind Robert didn't show the promotional video for the charity. Instead, they showed a series of text messages. Robert, make sure Brendan drinks the tea I gave you. It'll make him more compliant. We need that ring on your finger by Christmas. Serena, he's asking questions about my past. I'm scared. Robert, Don't be scared. Be pregnant. Take the IUD out or I cut off the payments to your mother's nursing home. The room went deathly silent. 1,000 people stared at the screen. Robert turned around, his face turning a shade of purple I'd only seen in textbooks for heart failure. Turn it off. Turn it off now. But then the audio started. It was a recording Serena had made in the library the night before the dinner. Robert's voice. The Pornhub photos are ready. We'll drop them at dinner. Once Chloe is discredited, the family will rally around you. Brendan will be so ashamed he'll do whatever I say. Just play the victim, Serena. It's what you're best at. The gasp that went up from the crowd was a physical force. Brendan, standing near the stage, looked up at his uncle. The mask of the soft brother finally broke. He didn't yell. He didn't scream. He walked up the steps, took the microphone from Robert's trembling hand, and looked at the audience. My name is Brendan Davis, he said, his voice echoing with a cold, newfound authority. And as of this moment, Robert Davis is removed from the board. The authorities have already been notified regarding corporate espionage, coercion, and fraud. He looked at me in the back of the room. He didn't smile. He just nodded once. A salute from one survivor to another. The fallout was spectacular. Robert was arrested before he could even leave the ballroom. The scandal made the front page of the Times. I lost my license, just as predicted. The Board of Nursing wasn't interested in the noble reasons behind my HIPAA violation. I was banned from practicing for 5 years. But I didn't care as much as I thought I would. A month later, I was sitting on the porch of a small cabin in upstate New York. It was quiet. No family dinners, no wealthy relatives, no lies. A car pulled up the gravel driveway. It was Brendan. He got out, looking healthier, though his eyes still held a lingering sadness. He sat down in the chair next to me and handed me a thick envelope. What's this? I asked. A settlement, he said. The company is being restructured. We're selling off the property management arm. This is your share of the inheritance, released early. It's enough to open that clinic you always talked about. A private one. For women who don't have anywhere else to go. I looked at the check. It was more money than I'd ever seen. And Serena? I asked. She's in a witness protection program of sorts, Brendan said. She gave the DA everything on Robert's other investments. She's gone, Chloe. Truly gone. He looked out at the trees. I'm sorry it took me so long to see who you were. The sister I should have been proud of. We're devices, Bren, I said, leaning my head on his shoulder. We're slow learners. I looked at my hands. I wasn't a nurse practitioner, on paper anymore. I was a freak, a black sheep, and a discredited professional. But as the sun set over the mountains, I realized I'd never felt cleaner. The secrets were out. The rot was gone. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving the family, I was building something of my own. I picked up my phone one last time and deleted the photo of Serena's file. I didn't need it anymore. The truth wasn't a weapon you carried in your pocket. It was the ground you stood on. And finally, the ground was solid.